Now I'm going to go ahead and show you how I work with a horse, bitting them up to the side and then also bitting them up vertically. Now, this does come with a couple warnings though, okay? Because there is the potential for this to go very wrong if you do it incorrectly. If you do it right, then it's a perfectly humane training practice, but it kind of has a bad name because a lot of trainers use it abusively and horses can get hurt, okay? So if you don't feel comfortable doing this, then don't, and just really heed the warnings that I'm going to give you, okay? First and foremost, you want to make sure that you have an extremely mild, humane bit, okay? It needs to be smooth and it needs to be kind of wide around. You don't want something that's really thin and you don't want anything that has a twist to it, okay? Smooth and wide. The other thing is that it needs to be a snaffle. It doesn't matter if it's a loose ring or a D ring or an O ring or any of those things. I don't really care about that part, but you need to make sure that it doesn't have a shank, okay? If it has any sort of shank or any leverage to it at all, do not use it for this exercise of bitting out to the side, okay? So those are your safety precautions as far as the bit's concerned. Also, you never want to leave a horse unattended, bit up to the side, okay? Always stay right there with them the whole time. And there really is absolutely no reason whatsoever for a horse to be bit up to the one side for any more than 2 or 3 minutes, okay? You know, sometimes a horse may take a little bit longer if they're kind of struggling with it, but there's absolutely is no reason whatsoever for people to leave horses bit up for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour. That's where it gets abusive, for sure. So, like I said, there's nothing wrong with this exercise when done correctly, but, you know, make sure that you use your common sense and, you know, care for your horse. Don't leave them bit up like this unattended for, you know, half an hour is absolutely ridiculous, okay? And then, like I also talked about, make sure you're also using the right bit, okay? So he's been bridled a few times before, but I'm going to go ahead and bridle him now. I like to put the reins over their head first. Good boy. And I'll use the bridle to keep him with me. I'm not going to go chasing him around. I'll make him stay close to me. And I'll just put my thumb in his mouth a little bit. Good boy. Good. And ideally in the beginning, I like to have a piece of sugar that I give them with the bit, but unfortunately I'm out of sugar today, so he just gets a piece of carrot. But I do really recommend, especially with young horses, give them a sugar cube, put it in your hand with the bit, and so then when they take the bit, they also get the sugar cube, and it helps them learn to really like the bit because they associate the bit with that sugary taste. And so I really recommend doing that. And you can take a horse that's difficult to bridle or get the bit in the mouth, and I mean within a week of doing that you can have them picking it up right out of your hand. So it's one of those really simple, kind of almost like a cheat code a little bit. It's just like so simple, but it just works so incredibly well. But he just got a piece of carrot today, but he takes the bit pretty well for how green he is. Okay, now I have a pair of clip-on reins attached to it. You can use split reins. You can use, even if you want to use side reins and kind of rig that up a little bit. It doesn't really matter what you use, or use even a lead rope. But what I'm going to do first, I'm not going to start out by bitting him up. I'm going to just play with the bit a little bit and get him bending to both sides. So I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure on it. Good boy. And when he gives to the pressure, I release. And that was really, really good. If he struggled with it, I do stay here and do it a couple more times until he released immediately. But he gave right to it and turned his head around with no problem. So I'm going to come to the other side. And it's totally normal for one side to be better than the other, so don't be concerned about that. He's not pulling on me, but there he goes. So he just took a second to get his head all the way around. Good boy. So I think he's good to go. Like I said, if your horse is struggling with it, if they don't soften pretty quickly within a couple of seconds, then go ahead and play with it a little bit and do it several times until your horse is softening when you pick up and pull on that rein. So what I'm going to do is tie the reins up. I'll start on this side. I'll tie the rein up to the horn, okay? And whether you're using a loop rein or a split rein or a side rein is going to differ how you do that. And so just figure out the best way to tie it up that's going to be, most importantly, easy to release. Because if your horse gets in a pickle, you don't want to be there trying to, get this crazy knot out, okay? Make sure, however you tie it up, it's strong and secure, that your horse isn't going to be able to pull it undone. But if you need to jump in there and get it undone real quick, that you should be able to get it done in 30 seconds or less, okay? So don't do anything too crazy, but make sure that it's gonna be pretty secure tied up there. And honestly, usually looping it around a couple of times over top of itself, it really usually will do the trick. If your horse kind of pulls on it a little and it comes undone, no worries, go back to it and try to tie it up again and see if you can tie it up a little bit better way. But like I said, most importantly is that you can get it undone quickly if you get into a bad situation. And then the other important safety thing as well is that you want to stay right in the safe zone, basically where the saddle is, or the middle of their back, okay? And because the horse's head is going to be pulled around and he's going to start moving in a circle, which is what I want him to do, that's fine, but I don't want to get hit by his head or by his butt swinging around. So I'm going to stay right here as I tie it up. Once I have it tied up, I'm going to back out of that and I'm going to give him plenty of room. Good boy. And I'm going to give him plenty of room so that I'm not getting hit by something. When it's time for me to come in and release him, I'm going to make sure that he's stopped, and I'm only going to approach him at the safe zone right here. I may come a little bit towards the front and kind of give him a little stroke on the face so that he kind of settles and knows that he needs to stay stopped, but I'm only going to come in at the safe zone, out in the direction he's bent towards. So if I've got his right rein tied up, I'm only going to come into the safe zone on the right. If he's got his left rein tied up, I'm only going to come into the safe zone on the left. I'm not going to approach him on the opposite side, okay, is a really good way to get yourself trampled by his hind end moving around. And I'm not going to be too much in front or too much behind. Just stay right in that safe zone, okay? So I'm going to walk him over here a little bit, and I'm also going to pick up my whip too, because I do want to encourage him to be kind of circling around a little bit. And what I'd like to see, my goal, is that he disengages the hindquarters and that he softens to the bit is the goals, okay? So that's what you're keeping in mind. Good boy. Ooh. And I already had moved him around a little bit, which is a good thing to do, Ooh. So that they're already a little bit warmed up before you start bending them around too much. All right, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is ask him to soften to the left. Good boy, and he took him a second, so I'm going to do it a few times. There you go, good boy. Now I'm going to release, and then I'm going to ask him again because it took him a few seconds that time. There he goes. Okay, so now I'm going to tie this up a little bit, and like I said, really even just looping it around itself a couple of times is usually more than enough. Good boy. And then I'm going to undo his lead rope, and I'm going to back away and let him kind of think about it and see how it's kind of, I don't know if you can tell from the angle of the camera, but it's kind of pulling on him a little bit. There he goes. And he's softening to it. Good boy. So I'm going to encourage him to move a little. And I'd like to see him disengage his hindquarters. And I may need to bit it up a little bit more. Good! So if you could see, he stepped over with his inside hind leg, and that's what we'd like to see. Now I'm going to go ahead and go in to just to the safe zone. Ooh, good. So see how I approach him at the safe zone, make sure that he's stopped. And I'm going to undo it and actually tighten it just a little bit. And you would rather, in the beginning, you would rather always have it too loose and go in and tighten it than have it ever be too tight. Okay, so do it loose first is perfectly fine, and then if you go, that needs to be tightened a little, then you can always go in and tighten it. Good boy. So I'm just going to encourage him to go in circles. Look, good. Good boy. Good. Excellent. And he's softening to it pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead in and release, but I'm not going to let go of it. I'm going to go ahead and untie it, but I'm going to hold on to it and have him release, make sure he's soft. Ooh, ooh, there. And so now he's pretty soft to it, so then I'll go ahead and release it. Good boy. Good. Now I'll bring him back out to center, and I'll do the other side. So see, that was, a minute. There's absolutely is no reason to leave a horse bit up like that to one side for, 10, 15 minutes or more. So I'll ask him nice, just one time. Good. And then the next time, I'll go ahead and tie it up. There he goes. And then I'm gonna just back out of the safe zone here. Good boy. I'm gonna encourage him to move around, and he needs to be moving around to the right. There he goes, good boy. Good, and he's stepping under real nicely with his hind. I'll ask him again to move around. Good, good boy. Good, and then I'm gonna go ahead and approach him in. He's soft and he disengaged. So I'm gonna approach him, good boy. Always at that safe zone, and I'm gonna go ahead and untie it. But like I said with the last one on the other side, I'm still gonna hold the rein, make sure that he's soft. Good, and release. Because I definitely don't want to release the rein if he's sitting there hanging on it. So I'll hold it until I know he's soft, and then I release it. Good boy. So a couple of reasons to do this, why we do this exercise. For one, teaches the horse to be soft to the bit. Teaches them to move around, disengage the hindquarters, loosens them up. It's a good warm-up. It's good for young horses to teach them, like I said, just to be obedient and soften to the bit. The other thing too, for me personally, is that I like to kind of set up these sort of scenarios for what if you got stuck? What if your halter caught on something and you were stuck? What are you going to do? And so I like to teach the horses to stay relaxed and calm and to think it through when they feel like they're stuck or they feel claustrophobic or they feel this pressure on them. I like them to learn to relax into it. And so, I like to do things with the, ropes on their legs and bidding them up to the side and doing all these kinds of things, because if they do ever get caught in a fence or whatever, I like them to kind of almost be used to that feel of being kind of caught up or being kind of claustrophobic, and I want them to be used to it so I can come in and save them. Like with this, he was bit up to the side, he stayed relaxed through it, and then I came in and I released it and I saved him. So if he gets caught up in a fence or something, I like him to stay relaxed, and I like to be able to not have this horse that's thrashing around freaking out, and I'm going to try to go in there and risking myself getting hurt because I'm trying to release the horse. I like them to know, okay, I'm going to come in and I'm going to release that pressure for you. And so, that's just as a benefit for me personally, some of the exercises that I like to do. But the most common reason is that most trainers do this to just get the horse soft to the bit and kind of loosen him up side to side. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'll walk him over here a little bit. I got to get my lunge line. I'm going to go ahead and bid him up vertically to the saddle. So that means that there's going to be equal pressure on the left and right rein both. And then I'm going to move him around a little bit. So there's a million ways to bid a horse up, and it depends again on what kind of reins you are using, and I'm just going to show you one of those ways. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I want to do it fairly loosely, but I do want to have a little bit of pressure on him, just so he knows the bit's there. So I'm going to shove the very middle of my reins. I've shoved them in between my saddle and my pad, right underneath the pommel of your saddle, and then I'm going to hook them onto the horn. And then since these reins are adjustable, then which is really nice for this exercise, I can adjust them a little bit to the tightness that I want. And like I said, I'm not going to have him real tight. I'm not trying to set his head or anything. I just want to have a little bit of pressure so that he feels the bit kind of, that it's there and got a little bit of pressure on him. And then I'll move him around on the lunge line. Yeah, a little bit more. Make sure, especially in the beginning, you do both sides equally. There are exercises that you can do it more to the inside, and that's fine, but especially with the green horse, just do them both equally so that they learn to soften just kind of put their nose down. It doesn't confuse them too much. Oh, this one's kind of stuck. There we go. So I'm going to check this one up against the other, and they're about equal. Good boy. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach the lunge line. And like I said, I had already moved him around just a little bit. So he's already warmed up, especially with the a green horse, you don't want to try to warm them up with the, bit up right from the beginning. Let them warm up with their head free and whatever headset they like, and then you can go ahead and bit them up. So I'm just going to move him around a little. And they're fairly loose. They're not really putting any pressure on him when he's just walking. But if he kind of puts his head too far up or down, then he's going to feel it a little bit. Good boy. Go ahead and send him into a trot. And then what I'll do is I'll just move him around a little bit, and then I'll tighten him a bit. Like I said, with bitting him up to the side, and this goes for anything, you'd rather start with it too loose, and then, you can always stop and adjust it and make it a little tighter than trying to do it with it too tight. Good. And if he does give any effort to put his head down, kind of soften his nose down, then I'll tell him he's good. And walk. Good boy. I'll go ahead and change directions. No, wrong way, bud. So I'm going to pull him around with the lunge line. Good. Good. And walk. Excellent. Good boy. And ooh. Good. Excellent job. So he gets a little piece of carrot because he's cooperating really nicely. Good boy. So now I'm going to go ahead and tighten it up a bit so that it's going to have a little bit of pressure on him as he's going around. And really use good judgment on how tight it should be. You never want it to be too tight. Like I said, you'd always rather work with it a little bit too loose than have it get too tight. So just use good judgment. Don't try to pull your horse's chin into their chest or anything like that. Just try to get a real nice kind of working frame where they got their head down and they're softening to the bit. Yeah, a little bit more on the side. Good boy. So now you can tell he can kind of feel it a little bit more, and he's having to put his nose down a little bit, but it's not too much. You never want to start out with these youngsters or with any horse having them, really having to tuck their nose in too much, because I will tell you, having a horse that moves with their head behind the vertical is absolutely one of the most frustrating and hardest habits to try to break. It is really hard to break once a horse builds up the muscle of being behind the bit or behind the vertical. It's really hard to fix and get him moving, pushing forward in front of the vertical again. So you never want to bend him up too much. Good boy. And you can see he's adjusted his frame just like what I would want him to do. He's adjusted his frame so that the reins are not pulling on him. If the reins are pulling on him a lot, then either they're too tight or he's not wanting to give to them. And so he's changed his position of his head so that the reins are loose. So even though I tighten them, notice they're still slacking him now, and that's because he's not pulling on him, he's not leaning on him, and that's what we like to see. Now he's a little stiff on this side and wants to kind of pull on the lunge line a little bit though. So I'm going to kind of just give him a couple little bumps with the lunge line. If he pulls on me a bit, there we go. Good boy. Just to get his attention. Good. And walk. Walk. Good. Okay, I'll go ahead and change direction. And if he's not want to change right away, I'll keep on him and keep backing up. Good. Good boy. Good. Good. This side he's much lighter too. Good boy. A little more. Good boy. Good. And walk. Walk. Good. And hoo. 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 Good. Hoo. So I'm going to have him back up a little and do it again because I don't like him to... No, back up. Back. Good. Because I don't really like him to turn towards me when I ask him to hoo. If I back up, it's fine. They can turn towards me. But if I stand my ground and say, whoa, then I want him to just stop square. Ooh. Ooh. Good. Good boy. So he gets a piece of carrot. Good boy. And today, since this was kind of the first time, really, I mean, like I said, he's had the bit on a couple times before. But this was the first time that I really actually bit him up. So I'm not going to do any more than that. I'm not going to tighten it anymore. But the next time, I'll probably warm him up, start with him at this length, and then bit it up a little bit more. Maybe just tighten it a few inches and start to develop a frame. But like I said, when in doubt, have it a little bit too loose. Okay, it is so hard to fix a horse that has learned to be behind the bit. So keep them, pushing forward, keep the forward movement. If they're kind of fighting it a little bit, then just really push them forward, but don't have it too tight. If your horse has got their nose tucked up into their chest or, anything like that, what you're looking for, the vertical, is that from his pole down should be a straight vertical line. Okay, if he's in front of the vertical, it's fine, totally fine. If he gets where his nose is behind the vertical, that he's got his nose further back than what his forehead or his pole is, then that's called behind the vertical or behind the bit. And it is so hard to break, and it's really, really bad for your horse. It actually will start to cut off blood flow to parts of their brain. No joke. So, when in doubt, have it a little bit loose. I don't want you to be afraid of doing these exercises though, because they are good exercises. They're good for your horse and, really any horse. I'm doing it with these young guys, but, even for older horses, it's good to kind of loosen them up or remind them. So they're not bad exercises by any means, but, you want to use your common sense and be nice to your horse with them. Good. Now I'm going to do the exact same bitting up exercises with Pippin. Good boy. Good. Good boy. And let's probably go up one more for him. He's a little bit smaller than his brother is. Good boy. Good. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and bit him up to the one side. And actually first I'm going to check in with him a little bit and see if he'll soften. And then I'll tie it up. He's kind of hanging on me. There he goes. As soon as he softens, release to him, even if it's just a little bit. Ask him again. A little better, but he's still kind of hanging. There he goes. Good boy. I might go ahead and actually switch it up and go to the other side a little bit. And I'll maybe go back and forth a little until he's soft before I tie him up. A little better on this side. Good. Good boy. One more time. Good. Now I'll try him again on the left. And if he's soft, then I'll go ahead and tie it up. Yeah, he's a little stiffer to this side. So I'll do a few more times. Good boy. There he goes. Good. And I just hold and wait, even if he's kind of playing around with his head. Good boy. Good. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and tie him up to this side. And I'm back out of that safe zone. Good boy, he's already disengaging. Good boy. Just encourage him to move a little more. Good, good boy. And then I'm gonna go ahead and approach him in that safe zone. Good, and he's kind of tugging on it here and there, but he's, for the most part, being pretty soft to it. So I'm gonna undo it, but just like what I did with Mary, I'm gonna hold it. Even though I've got getting it untied, I'm gonna hold it, and he's real soft to it, so I'll release. Good boy. Then I'll do it on the other side. I'll ask him to soften once or twice first, and then once he's getting soft to this side, then I'll tie him up. The idea is not for them to just fight it out, okay? You want to teach them and prepare them for everything that you're going to ask them to do. Good. All right. So now I'll go ahead and tie him up this time. A little bit more. Good boy. And he's kind of wanting to pull on it. Okay, and then I'll back out of that safe zone. Yeah, he's got it a little bit too loose because he's pulling on it. So I'm going to come back in and tighten it up a bit. Like I said, you can always tighten it. You'd rather it start out being too loose and then go back through and tighten it than the other way around. That should hold a little better. So I just encourage him to move around. I'd like to see him disengage. Good. And keep pulling that side loose. Might not be tying it as well. Sometimes if you go to a different side, you're twisting it the wrong way, is what I think I keep doing. So I'll ask him again. Okay, so what I'm going to do, since he's learning to pull on it, and he's not wanting to give to it, is I'm going to unclip the other side and actually tie it, since twisting it around is not working. And it's a little bit easier actually to do this exercise with split reins because you can just tie the one split rein up. With these ones I usually try to twist them up, but as you saw, that doesn't always work if they want to really pull on it. So now I'll ask him to disengage again and hopefully that will hold. There we go. And he's kind of wanting to fight on it because he got used to being able to get away with it. There he goes. There, good boy. Good boy. Good. Yeah, he's wanting to fight with it on this side a little. So I'm just going to keep asking him to disengage. There, good boy. Good boy. Good, he's starting to figure it out. Good boy. But yeah, he's kind of wanting to fight with it. Good boy. And so next time he's a little bit soft and stopped, I'll go ahead and try to approach him. I'm just going to let him figure it out. He's wanting to turn and look at me, but so I'm going to kind of go ahead and come over onto this side of him to encourage him to turn this way. Good boy. Ooh, good. So I'm going to go up to his head. Good. And then again, I'm not going to let it go until he's soft, and he actually is soft on it now finally, after he wanted to fight with it for a little bit. And he's pretty soft on it, so I'm going to go ahead and release to him. Good boy. Good. Okay, so now while we're here, I'll go ahead and grab my lunge line. And I'll attach both sides. And I'm going to do the same thing like what I did with Mary and put it under the cantle. So it goes in between the saddle and the pad. And then it kind of comes up through that little hole at the front of the seat. And then loop it on the horn so it stays. And this is a good length to start out with. That with him, he's smaller than Mary. So this is a good length right here. He's got plenty of slack. Good boy. And then I'll move him around a bit and then I'll tighten it a little. Good. But you could see when he was wanting to fight with it, when he was bit up to the right, it was almost wanting to go through his mouth because he was fighting with it so much. So it's important that, like, this one's got a really big ring on the side, and so it didn't go through his mouth because the ring was so big. Or you can have a full cheek. Now you have to be really careful with the full cheek snaffles because it's really easy for them to get caught on things. But you can have a full cheek, or you want to make sure that that ring's really big. And then also it has a bit hobble or a curb strap on it. Even though it's a snaffle, you can still put a curb strap on a snaffle, and that also helps keep it from going through their mouth. Because that's one thing that you don't want to have them experience. They'll start they'll learn to pull on it, but then they'll think the bit's kind of a bad thing, and it'll get the bridle all discombobulated. So you want to have a really wide ring and have a curb strap on it. And he's been a little heavy on my hand, so I'll keep pushing him forward. But if he gets heavy, then I'll give him some little bumps on this lunge line here to be like, hey, don't be hanging on it. Good. And I like to see when I move them off, I like to see that they're not distracted and playing with the bit. So both of the boys were pretty good with it. You know you're gonna have to work on it a lot more when you got a horse that you go to send them off and they're just so really distracted with the bit and just kind of opening their mouth and playing with the bit. Now I'm gonna kind of get after him a little because he's really pulling on me. So I just got after him a bit, like, hey, pay attention. I'm gonna send him off again. I'm gonna give him a couple bumps if he pulls on me. There you go. But I keep sending him forward. One thing, I don't like them pulling on me on the lunge line, because then you can't really rely on them to stay with you. If they get scared or something, they're just going to want to pull away. You're starting to loosen up a little bit. I'm going to ask him to walk. Good boy. And then I'll go ahead and I'm going to pull him around because I want him to loosen up off of that halter a little bit. And I'm going to ask him to change directions. Good boy. Ask him to trot. Good. And he's much, much lighter on this side, which is funny because Mary was the opposite. So even though they're brothers, they still have a different, better side. Whereas he's looser to the left and is stiffer to the right. Mary was stiff going to the left and was a lot looser to the right. But you expect that with any horse. It's going to be one side or the other, so you just work on it. Good boy. And walk. Excellent. Good boy. And hoo. Excellent. Now I'll give him a carrot. Good. Good boy. I'm going to go ahead and pull him off the fence. Ooh. Good boy. Good. Ooh. Good boy. Ooh. And then I'll go ahead and tighten it up a bit. That's got a little bit of pressure on him. But like I said, I want him to be focused more on moving around and not get real caught up on playing with the bit. So I'm going to send him off. Good. And I'll let him just walk for a minute and get used to the feel of it. Good boy. Good. And then I'll go ahead and ask him to trot. Good boy. And he's not really pulling on it. He's playing a little bit, not real bad or anything. Just kind of getting used to the feel of it, but he's keeping pretty good slack in the rein. Good. And walk. Good boy. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and actually pull him around when I go to change direction. Good. Ooh. Thank you. I keep getting the... I'm going to back him up. Good. Thank you. So I didn't ask him to go forward. Good boy. Because when I back up, I don't want him going forward that same way. See how the whip's here? I don't want him going that way. Good. And that's just something he's got to learn. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and change directions a couple more times, just so he gets a little bit better idea for it. Good. Good. Much better. And it helps when I don't have the end of my whip getting caught on brush. Good. Good. Better. So now I'll go ahead and send him off. And this was the side he was kind of pulling on me, so I want to kind of pay good attention to him, not let him hang on me. Good boy, a little bit better. Okay, right there, he's pulling on me. Thank you. And I gave him a few warning bumps. So I'm not gonna just jerk him around. I'm gonna give him a couple warning bumps, but if he won't get off of that pressure, then I'll pull him around and be like, hey, pay attention, don't be jerking on me. I'm not strong enough to hold you up. So he's gonna have to learn to balance himself and stay light on that pressure and not be pulling on it. But I keep driving him forward. See, I don't let him stop. Even though he wants to stop when I scold him for pulling on me, I'm not gonna let him stop because that's not what I'm asking him for. I just want him to get off that pressure. A little bit better. I'm gonna keep driving him forward. Good. So he's wanting to stop over here because he thinks, well, you're pulling on me and you're tugging on me, so I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna go, no, I don't want you to stop. I want you to keep going, but I don't want you to be hanging on me. You gotta lighten up a little bit. So just drive him forward. So I just keep driving him forward until he moves off. And if I have to give him a little spanking, I will. Thank you. Good boy. So at least he's trying something new. Okay, it's not the right answer, but he's figuring out, okay, this isn't right. Let's try something else. So I'm not gonna get mad at him for it. I'm just gonna say, no, that's still not the right answer that I'm looking for. There, that was a little bit better. At least he kept going. He was still hanging on me just a little, but at least he's keeping going. And he wants to stop in this corner here, but I'm not gonna let him. I'm just gonna keep driving him forward. And as you keep driving forward, they'll figure it out. Don't get caught up in the drama of letting them stop and all that nonsense. Just keep driving them forward into a trot, and they'll figure it out. So I'm gonna get after him a little bit more, like, hey, I already explained to you I don't want you stopping. There you go, good. So even if he walks, I'll leave him alone for a minute so he knows he's good for moving forward. Good. Good. Now right there, he wants to change direction, so I'm gonna get after him a little. I don't want him running into the corner like that. And he's just having to kind of learn his bearings a little bit. Good. So I'm driving him out of that corner since he always wants to kind of run into it and try to change directions on me. Better, good boy. Drive him out of that corner. Good boy. Drive him forward. And even though he's backing up, I'm just going to stay with him and drive him forward. Good. And what he's going to figure out is when he's going forward and not hanging on me, I leave him alone. So I'm asking him to try again. He's starting to get kind of tired. So hopefully he'll figure it out pretty soon, since he won't have as much energy to want to fight with me. And I'm just gonna keep on him. I'm not hitting him real hard or anything. I'm just letting that lash end of the whip bump into him. And I'm just gonna keep on him until he decides to go forward. Good! And then see, I leave him alone. So he'll learn that this is the right thing to do. Good. And what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to go ahead and stop him here for a minute. Ooh, ooh, good, nice stop. And I'm going to try to make this a little easier on myself, and hopefully on him too. And I'm going to unclip my lunge line. I'm going to clip it to this square piece on the side of the halter, so I should get a little bit better bend from him. So hopefully he won't pull on me quite so much. So I'm going to send him out again. Yeah, I can get a little bit better bend from him like that. So that's going to work a little better for us, I think. Now I'll ask him to trot. He's wanting to turn around, but I'm not going to let him. Because he knows that going to the left is his easy side. Just like we know that because we saw it. So he would rather go the other way because that's easy for him. But he's going to have to deal with the fact that he needs to be equal on the right side. I'm going to ask him to come forward a little because I don't want to get caught up in his drama. There we go. So if they start backing up and they're not wanting to move off the whip, then you can pause and have them come forward off the halter a little bit. And I'm just going to keep working with him here. Even though this issue isn't with the bit, I'm going to keep working with him here until he'll lunge around a little bit nicer for me. Good. If he wants to walk for a little bit, it's fine as long as he keeps moving forward and he's not going to hang on me. And he is softer to the walk. Most horses are. It's usually the faster you go, the more they want to hang on you. That's normal. You just work with it. Good boy. So now I'm going to ask him to trot. I'm going to push him forward. Good. Drive him out of that corner. Good. Better. Now see, now he's wanting to goof off a little. I'm going to ask him to take a step forward. Good. And then I'll drive him. If he starts backing up, I'll ask him to step forward with the halter and then I'll drive him. Good. So I'm breaking up. He's kind of wanting to get into this drama of just backing up away from me, and I'm not going to let him do it. I'm going to kind of break up that pattern. Good. Much better. All right, so we got 2 times around. Walk, walk. Of him not trying to stop. And though he wasn't really light, he was better than what he was in the beginning. And so all you can ask for is improvement each day. You can't expect it to be perfect in one session. And so he improved some by not hanging on me quite so bad. And he kept us the circle and he kept going. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Good, nicely done. So I'll give him a treat and I'm going to go ahead and quit lunging him there. Good boy. Good. So you could see mainly he was pretty much fine with the bit. He wasn't really fighting with it, bit up like this at all, but it was more so the lunging, which actually, as far as the bit's concerned, I would rather have him be focusing on something else than being so caught up in playing with the bit and trying to fight with the bit. And so keep driving him forward and working them, and eventually they'll get real kind of comfortable with being on the bit, which is a term for how we like to have them in our hands when we're riding. And so, you know, keep working them and keep pushing them forward, and don't let them get caught up in just playing with the bit and getting their head all tucked in or opening their mouth and that kind of stuff. Just keep driving them forward.